Welcome guys to another episode of the Q&A. We had a super Q&A just the other day, but I wanted to get out there and do a regular one with you guys. So this is the show where any of you can ask something down in the comments, and next time I do one of these episodes, I'll read through, pick some of my favorite questions to get us to talk about a variety of topics, about a variety of games, but usually Guild Wars 2 based stuff, and we'll run through. So first of all, it's a question from BioFrog, who was responding specifically to my comments that the spring patch has been really good for its updates to dailies and the fact that daily jumping puzzles are in there. And I really like the daily jumping puzzles. I mentioned this on a previous video, and he responds by saying, "Are you kidding me? The daily jumping puzzles are a complete waste, entirely because of Mesmer portals. Until they block portals, there is zero benefit in the game by having a daily JP. They need to use the same mechanic which blocks gliding as to block portals from being used in those areas. Also, we have this exact same problem to running dungeon paths." Actually, I think that the selling of dungeon paths is a completely different issue, but I would like to touch on this because the idea of portaling through jumping puzzles has been one of those vague conversations people have had for so long now. My opinion here is that no, the portals don't make this useless content. Now, remember who you're speaking to for a second. I'm the guy that was really worried about Corteria gliding because I was scared that there'd be jumping puzzles that slip through the cracks and they don't have gliding disabled on. And I'm the guy who's in the past talked about how irritating portals are when it comes to the difficult jumping puzzles. In principle, looking at it from a very base level, I see what you're saying. Like, it seems like it does make the system useless. But I have to disagree. And the reason I disagree is because when you actually get in there and you see the way this has impacted the community, you see the way that people have been playing, you realize it's not so much of a problem. Even with the existence of the portals, you tend to find most people are doing the puzzle anyway. Not everyone's that reward driven, that they've only got a couple of seconds and if they can do it quicker, then they'll absolutely have to do it. A lot of people are that reward driven, but not everyone is. And not everyone is too lacking of skill in jumping puzzles to go for it themselves. I think most players, they'll take a portal if they see it there, but if it's not there, they won't stand around waiting and hoping. They'll just go and do the puzzle. So I think a lot of people still do it. I think a lot of the puzzles require multiple portals to get the whole distance anyway. Especially like some of these longer lab style portals that we see. ArenaNet already explained that the super hard ones aren't going to be appearing on the daily rotation. So what you tend to find is you go in there for your daily jumping puzzle, and what do you see mostly? Yeah, people porting, but also people actually playing it. None of this is that difficult that people are only portaling, and it's not about giving a player a challenge. What it's about is encouraging players to go to areas of the game that they may not have been for a long time, and also have a high population of players. Now, to me, one of the biggest crimes of Guild Wars 2, if that sounds a little bit too strong, one of the things that Guild Wars 2 messes up, you almost never need to interact with other people. Opportunities to interact do not come often, and actually, the fact that you can go to a jumping puzzle and ask someone for a portal might actually get one. The fact that there is a daily incentive to meet other people, make potential friends, play into the fact you're in an MMO, an opportunity to join a guild, and once you're in a community, you end up in that MMO for a lot longer. I think this has real value, and so I don't think portals are this big doom over that entire idea. And though there is like this idea that you'd want to force everyone to really have to earn their own reward, it's not a problem in my opinion. And when you get in game, I think you'd see that too as you go through the daily puzzles. Anyway, moving on, the next question is from Mr. Haunter88, who says, "Hey WP, do you think that they will ever consider making it possible to decorate your home instance? I've played GW2 solo since launch, but I've missed the days of Guild Wars 1 where even a single player could purchase himself a guild hall, whereas now you do require some people in your guild to achieve this. Is it a good way to get people to band together, but maybe time for a carrot to the lone wolves out there?" Well, see, there's some interesting discussion here, because on the one hand, I do think that the home instance is a great place for decoration. But on the other hand, I don't think you just get to flippantly put that in the game. And I don't think that it was right for ArenaNet to focus on that. In general, I do like the social-based decorating that they've gone with the guild halls. And if the caps can be remedied, and there's a very big if the caps can be remedied, I really don't think you need a home instance to decorate as well. If there are higher global cap, if there's a higher local cap as well, these halls, and also player permissions, I should say that as well, player ownership, as I mentioned in a recent video, if these things came into the game, it's perfectly fine doing it in the guild hall. The maps are big enough for it, and it's even more interesting. There's a higher chance that someone will stumble into your little area and your little house that you've built for yourself in a guild hall than there is a chance for someone to stumble into your home instance, right? So in a lot of ways, I think it is better with the guild halls. But does that mean I don't want to see it in the player instances, in our home instances? I would love to see it there too. I just think it would take some time. I think what ArenaNet really need to focus on is fixing it for the guild halls. Make it so that it works well with the guild halls, increase the caps there, increase the features and the functionality there. And then once you've got that in place, then you can turn around and you can put it in your own instance and you can have some fun with it there. And how that's the kind of thing that's even, you know, expansion marketable, you know, 2 expansions down the line. Hey guys, we're getting, you know, player housing is becoming a thing. Real player housing with real decorations. We're as good as WildStar now and we've got it fully intact and it's all awesome. It's at that point you'd put it in. So I don't think we'd see it anytime soon. And it is a nice idea, but for now, I'm not sad that it's not there. Not too cut up, because I really like the idea that they're out there in the guilds, especially now that scribing is so much more affordable, right? Next question is from Radu Lycan, who said, "Hey WP, whenever you mention dailies in your videos, you usually mention the achievement point gain associated with it. I'm curious if you've hit the daily cap for achievement points yet, and if you've got any opinions on the existence of a cap. I've been playing for a long time since launch, and I've been at that cap for quite a long time already." So I guess from your comment here, you don't like the cap, I suppose? Well, so I'll explain how this works for people. In-game, you obviously have achievement points. The more achievements you get, achievements have different values, and slowly your point total rises. Achievement points is basically one of the only ways in Guild Wars 2 players can discriminate amongst one another. You'll find like dungeon runs, people will be like, you need 6,000 achievement points or more, otherwise you can't run with us because you're not pro enough, you haven't played enough. You see that kind of activity a lot. There is no direct player inspection. This is as close as Guild Wars 2 gets. Now, despite the discrimination, I really like this system. I think it works wonders, and I'm happy that it's still a thing that you know, ArenaNet haven't been upset about this discrimination, basically made it hidden. And if you get really, really high, you may even start participating on the achievement point leaderboards, which I think is still running, right? I haven't been on that website for a long, long, long time. There's no way to say in-game, but still, there is one other component to this, though, and that's the fact that if you do your dailies, or historically if you did your monthlies as well, you get achievement points from these. And it's ArenaNet's way of kind of saying, all right, if you want lots of AP, if you want to be on the AP leaderboards, if you want to look good in front of other people, not only do you need to do the in-game challenges for achievement points, but actually you need to consistently be playing the game. Every day, go in, do your daily. Every day, go in, do your daily. And before this 2 gold reward came in on the spring update, this was mostly the only people who really cared about dailies were people who cared about the achievement points associated with it. And you can get a lot of achievement points from this, from consistently logging in every day, to the point where there is a cap on it. In the end, there's a cap at 15,000. And so do we like this cap? I have to say, I like the cap. But the only reason I really like the cap, I get what ArenaNet's trying to do. I think this is really valuable as a system for keeping people having the game installed and actually playing the game. I think it's a valuable system, and I like what they're trying here. But personally, I prefer AP as more of a prestige thing about the actual achievements in-game. It kind of irks me, I'm going to sound like a douche here, it kind of irks me that there are people out there with far higher AP than me, but they've actually done way less in the game than I have. I may have some really rare, some really difficult, some really like grindy achievements, things that I've properly focused on and sat down and done and had fun doing, and I've explored this game in its entire breadth. And then you've got other people who really just don't do very much, if that. All they do is they log in and they get the daily each day. And they have way more AP than me. And why? Is it because they're a better player? Is it because they've done more? Is it because they have a better knowledge of things? Not really. It's because as a human being, they're a bit more diligent than me, and they're more consistent than me, and just because they happen to have been a student without much going on in their lives at that point, it just so happens they've never had any real-world obligations for, months at a time that's taken them away from the game or whatever. And something about that I don't really like. And I probably don't really like it because, yeah, I am an inconsistent person. In my personality, I am definitely not very good at logging in every day, having a strict schedule, and doing my daily each time. And, like, some people find much easier to deal with, and people are much more organized in the way they spend their days. And that to me doesn't feel like the game anymore. That feels like something else. This person's got higher AP than me just because he managed to log in a bit more. And so then we talk about the cap, and the cap stops you at 15k. So I quite like that, because what it means is, 15,000 AP from dailies, that's a lot. I'm at 9,500-ish. That's where I am right now. So I'm barely over halfway, right? I'm a fair bit over halfway. But that cap is still a long way off from me. So a 15,000 point cap on that is like saying, hey, yeah, you will be rewarded for your diligence for a really long time, and it will continue to affect AP for a really long time. But after a while, you know, enough is enough. And that allows people like me, who do play the game a lot, but not very consistently going for their dailies every time, it allows players like me to eventually catch up and get back on even ground. And for that reason, I think I do like the cap. I think I do. I would rather a world, for what it's worth, where the AP leaderboard and stuff had nothing to do with dailies and monthlies, and it was just the actual achievements and accomplishments in the game. But because, you know, like 5 AP from a real achievement can be way harder, especially when you start getting like 20,000 plus. Way harder, represent far more effort than just doing a single daily. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say on that one, because you can definitely fall two sides on it. Next, we got Skyrift Nexus, who says, hey WP, now that you have seen one of the most recent MMOs, can you give me 10 reasons to play Guild Wars 2? Or to still play, because now there is really a lot of MMOs that face Guild Wars 2's quality. Give me your opinions or make a video about it. Thanks, and I wish you the best. Alright, we're not making a video about BDO compared to Guild Wars 2. I haven't played enough BDO for that. But I did want to pick this question, because I have to say, in your comment here, you say, because now there is really a lot of MMOs that face Guild Wars 2's quality. I have to ask, really? Do you really think that's true? See, now, I talked about BDO a fair bit on a stream recently. I'll reiterate what I said there. BDO is a great game. In some ways, BDO is amazing. And I think BDO really appeals to some of my core loves as a gamer far more than Guild Wars 2 does. You know, just the fact that you have real people unable to teleport all around the world that actually have to transport goods and money and things from various areas. It's really, really interesting. I really like the game, and I feel like it's a thoroughly immersive game. But BDO is an atrocious game in many other places. The localization efforts of BDO and the quality, the bar for its quests, its general dialogue, its user interface, many of its options, how clunky a lot of the game feels, the way that it's, how terrible its network lag affects people, its downtime. It's got a huge laundry list of absolutely awful problems. And it's been fascinating playing BDO for me, because it's kind of taught me something about MMOs, and that's that MMO audiences will overlook and put up with and ignore a lot of really dodgy, wonky, and inconsistent crap in a game, just because the game provides a really solid experience in other areas. Like, where BDO is good, it is really good. But I am eternally fascinated right now at how many people are just willing to accept, you know, really terrible, terrible facts about the game. Like, oh yeah, you just basically never get to look any different. There are no armors that you'll ever be able to equip unless you give them a lot of money. Like, they're microtransactions. There is nothing micro about them. They are huge, huge, extortionate amounts of money that they ask for you for even simple things. And people are very quick and very happy to just overlook it. They'll just be like, yeah, it's, you know, it's a Korean localized MMO. What are you going to do? Don't worry about it. Ignore the fact that, like, 80% of all of its quest-based content reads like a 7-year-old wrote it, and it makes no sense skipping from one topic to the other. We'll just ignore that fact. Some of these other features are really cool. And that's very, very fascinating to me. Looking back at Guild Wars 2, it has its problems, sure, but nothing that's so glaring as you find in, like, BDO, which is the main other MMO I've been playing at the moment. The general bar of quality is consistently far higher in Guild Wars 2, in my opinion. And so, yeah, that's what I would say about it so far. I hope anyone who really likes BDO isn't too angry at what I've said here. We'll see how my opinion changes, whether I'll start overlooking all these glaring issues the more I play it, which I suspect that I will. Because the more you play a game, the more you sort of can look past its flaws, I guess, in some ways. Moving on, Harjberb says, what do you think about diminishing the price of resonating slivers in relation to the incentive to do guild missions? As a guild leader, I could really see the shift in interest and participation in the guild missions when people realized that a resonating sliver were a sustainable source of wealth if you did many missions. It brought back many people to the table when they might not have been enticed solely by the guild commendations. Hell, I was getting a butt ton of money myself since the patch, since I basically participated in every single mission. I absolutely understand why it was a necessity for the scribing cost, but when looking solely at it as an incentive for guild missions, the reward had become much poorer, unfortunately. Not really a rant, it's just an observation. In any case, I'm happy I sold my slivers the day before they dropped in price. I went from a profit of 70 gold to what would have been 13 just 12 hours later. Yeah, this is an interesting topic. It was something I didn't really have time to touch on with all my other coverage about the spring patch. And yes, there's going to be a balance there. If they're going to drop the cost of scribing and resonating slivers, then there's going to be less incentive for guild missions. So for people that don't know, scribing is very guild based, right? So what the devs did was they had a lot of recipes that take this new item, resonating slivers, which you got exclusively before this patch from guild missions. So it was incentive for people to keep doing guild missions. This is a good idea, and it means that resonating slivers have their place in the market and their place in the game, right? Supplies from missions, demand is on scribing. Simple. I like that. I think that it works very well. But what they did with the patch was not only did they reduce the amount of slivers necessary for scribing, which is what I think they should have done. Not only did they do this, but they also added a bunch of resonating slivers to other areas of the game. See, now, I don't understand. Maybe someone can explain. I don't understand why they did that. If they want to put more resonating slivers in the game, surely then they should have just increased the number of resonating slivers that came from guild missions, not added them elsewhere, because now that resonating slivers come from guild missions and random ass dailies and other places, doesn't that make the idea of a resonating sliver as like a currency and a specific item from a specific place with a specific use, doesn't that dilute it and make it kind of weird? I mean, why resonating slivers at all now? Why not just be like mystic coins, which are other like daily associated reward items? It doesn't make sense to me. I would have rather they dropped the amount that you need from scribing, increased the amount from guild missions, and left it there. And they didn't. They've now thrown it all over the place. So I do think it was a slightly poor decision, but it's always going to be a balance, right? If they're going to reduce the cost of something like this in some way, then that means there's going to be less incentive and less profit in a different area of the game. What I would hope, though, is that, yes, now people might not be so encouraged to do guild missions because of that change, but very quickly, hopefully, when Living World returns in a couple of months, maybe we'll finally get a couple more guild missions, a couple more puzzles and stuff like that. Am I hoping for a bit too much? Probably. But if they do that, then, you know, the incentive comes back for the guilds again. Not so much for the rewards, just because there's new content there. Terrafast says, WP, do you think that ArenaNet should look into adding world boss armors to the game? Essentially, add to certain world bosses items that could be collected to make armor pieces based on that boss, perhaps just as a single piece for several bosses to start, but as time goes on, work towards a whole set. I was just thinking the other day of the Claw of Jormag, how he has a weapon set sort of tied to it, and the Heart of Thorns meta bosses have armor sort of tied to them. I was then looking at Saurians and thinking how cool armor would look using part of their scales and hide. It got me thinking that collecting shards of the Shatter would be awesome to make an armor based on it. Yeah, okay, so there's two ideas here, I guess, really. Number one is armor that is themed around specific enemies, and especially when you're talking about like Norn and Rangers and these idea of people who go around hunting big game, like we get to experience a little in Chukun Champawat Legendary Collection. Yeah, this would add a lot of flavor to the game. Absolutely, I think this would be a cool idea, but once again, we're talking about adding new features, and the reason this isn't in the game isn't because ArenaNet haven't thought of it, it's because there's a priority list. And straight away, I would say, no, I wouldn't prioritize this anymore. There is a time where if you'd said this to me, I would have been like, hell yeah, they should do that. This would be amazing. And the time that I would have said that to you, and I would have wanted ArenaNet to make this a priority, would have been shortly after Triple Trouble came out, and I was really engrossed in this whole world boss element of the game, and how I really wanted them to put more rewards on this stuff to let people see how cool these can be. But these days, I don't think that that is an update that would really, really have legs. Why? Because people are already running the world bosses. The wild bosses don't need more armor and stuff associated with them because people are running them anyway because it's easy gold and whatever. And that's a shame, but that's the way it is. For what it's worth, in a world where we could just think of a feature and it would be implemented straight away, I think the perfect world for me is you have all the world bosses as they currently stand with the current loot that they currently have. Guess what? The players have already proved they like killing those and that they get like running around with them. It's fine. It works. But on top of that, I would have guilds capable of popping world bosses at their leisure, just as they can for Tequatl and the Triple Trouble Worm. I'd have that expanded far out, but when you pop one of these bosses as a guild, what you're popping is a hard mode version. And the hard mode versions encourage people to dive into those world bosses mechanics far more than they otherwise would. A lot of these bosses are great fights, really great fights, but they're just too easy. So a lot of people don't realize all the cool things that are going on. And what's the incentive for beating these hard versions of the fights that really everyone would thoroughly enjoy playing as content on their own? What's the reward? That's where you put your world boss armor in. And that's where you tap into a little of this very exciting idea GW1 had, where you'd go out and farm a certain boss for his green kind of thing. You know, we see that it works with Tequatl, the Tequatl weapons. We've seen that the Triple Trouble special armor works as well. This is just these are like the same skins as you get elsewhere, just with special effects on them. Do that for more bosses. And that to me is the perfect world. That would be amazing. But would I prioritize it? No, I wouldn't. I think that working on Living World and that style content for now has to be one of ArenaNet's main focuses while working on the next expansion on the side. I could talk about the other things I prioritize maybe in a different video. Next question is to do with the Gem Store. Hey WP, what's your opinion on NPCs wearing Gem Store stuff? I asked this because I was in the Iron Marches today and I noticed that some of the Sentinel NPCs are now wearing the new Sentinel outfit. Sentinel Scalebrusher at the village of Scalecath Waypoint, for example. I can't make my mind up on this. I'm bothered by the sight of an NPCs wearing things that aren't earned through normal means within the game, and how would it affect a newer player who gets excited and wants to earn it? At the same time, however, I like seeing some variety in the NPCs, and giving Gemstore items a present to the world, maybe having lore tied to them. What do you think? I think this is fine. The truth is, there's already a lot of NPCs out there who wear and do things that players can't, all right? Hodgkins in Ascalon Catacombs Explorable is dual-wielding scepters. He has a scepter in his offhand when, like, no class can ever do that, let alone the fact that he's supposed to be like an Ellie or whatever. There are a lot of instances of NPCs wearing or even showing unique gear. There was back in GW1 as well, for what it's worth. There was a specific NPC with this crazy, awesome flame-kissed armor that I think appeared back in the first game's betas and was never available to players. And we've seen it as well in Lion's Arch, in like the Black Lion stores. The NPCs in-game who are selling you some of these Black Lion weapons are equipping them and showcasing them. Not only do I think this is fine, I'll go further, I think this was a really nice touch, you know, for the devs to actually drop something in the Gem Store and have the forethought to think, hold on, Sentinel stuff, they're a Sentinel char, yeah, let's put it on. That's nice, and it's small changes like that that I think players eventually, if ArenaNet do enough small changes like that, you're going to have someone who's left the game for 2 years, comes back and starts noticing all these little nice touches and changes, and it helps to keep, you know, the NPCs around feeling contemporary. Not only are they wearing, you know, launch armor, but they're wearing maybe some flashier stuff that's been more recently developed. It's a good idea. And yeah, it feels a little sleazy that someone might walk up to that NPC and be like, oh, he looks cool, I want to get that. Oh, hold on, it's Gem Store. But pretty much any time ever someone sees another player, which is also going to happen just as much as you see NPCs, and that other player's wearing something cool, they're going to have that same experience. Basically, it just comes down to, yeah, the Gem Store sucks, and these things should be implemented with more interesting rewards and so on, not just gems. But if they're going to drop something in through the Gem Store, I'm happy to see them put it onto NPCs like this. This is a really cool idea. I'm glad for it. And last of all, the last question for today's Q&A comes from MMO Inks, who says, I was wondering if you were going to do another account tour. Has enough changed to warrant one? And what have you done with all your +5/+5 infusions? Do you still use them, or have you upgraded some to +7s now? All right, so I answered this on the stream the other day, but I'll answer it here as well. I do want to do another account tour. So for those that don't know, last year at Christmas, I went online, I made a video where I talked about all the achievements that I'd earned, the skins that I'd unlocked, my progress in PvP, the amount of PvP games that I'd played, just like everything I could really about my account, how many minis I had, all that stuff. It was a lot of fun, and it sparked actually quite a few other people to do their own account tours. At the end of that video, I mentioned I might like to do another one. Well, I didn't this year. Why? Well, the reason I didn't this year was because I guess I don't feel like enough has changed about my account. You know, the first tour was after 2 years since the game had come out. So maybe it would be best to do another one this winter. So I think this winter coming up, that's when you'll see the next account tour. And hopefully I've got some decent change. I'd like to have like a bunch of the Heart of Thorns collections and stuff like maxed out and done. If I can do another account tour and be like, yeah, check it out, I got Ex Machina, I got this, got all the backpacks, got all this, got like at least one of the new legendaries, all that stuff, that would be sweet. So I'll hold off until it's truly impressive and there's a nice big difference. As for my +5/+5 infusions, for those that don't know, this is probably one of the more impressive things about my account the last time I did an account tour. Those are all intact. I haven't really fractaled enough, so I haven't upgraded any to +7s. I haven't done anything with them. They're all intact. The only difference, I think, is one's been replaced with a queen bee, basically. One of my backpack has actually been tiered down just so I can have the queen bee on it. And that's about that. But there you go, guys. That's the Q&A for today. If you've got any more questions for me, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'd love to read them, and the best of the best I will pick to answer on next week's episode. Hope you're all having a great time. Hope the spring patch is something you're enjoying. I'll see you tomorrow for hopefully a pretty cool video about the story of the world. So I'll see you guys there. Thanks again, and have a great evening, everyone. With some merch, but specifically the two main core big winners of this competition would get paid to go out and have a trip to Seattle and visit the ArenaNet offices and check out Guild Wars 2 before it even come out. So this was huge. When this competition was announced, I was already on YouTube making videos about this franchise. I was about in the middle of Let's Playing Nightfall, I believe it was. And I decided, you know what, I will go for it. And so I made a video. This was the Guild Wars 2 in 60 seconds video. Many of you guys watching this may have already seen it. And really, it was my first attempt after hundreds of videos. My first attempt